A young German soldier's terrifying experience and distress on the Western Front during World War One. Because we're talking movies, we're talking 2022's All Quiet on the Western Front. Chris, I'm going to need your help correcting me with all these names. Because it's starring Felix Kramer, Albright Schultz, and Aaron Hilmer. Based on a novel by Erich Maria Remarque, screenplay by Ian Stokely, Leslie Patterson, and Edward Berger, who also directed. When you're starving, you'll do anything.
This story is neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all, an adventure. For death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell the generation of men who, even though they may have not escaped its shells, were destroyed. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? As we do every November 11th on the show, we're going to be talking about an anti-war film, and we have now come up to probably the granddaddy of all anti-war films, All Quiet on the Western Front. We're going to be talking about the new Netflix 2022 remake. It was originally done based on the 1929 novel, and the first film version came out in 1930. Scott, so why don't you take us away?
Yeah, I'm just gonna start with James Friend, I believe, the cinematographer in this film. Because this, like, even though it is a dire film and the consequences, he did fucking make it look beautiful. Like, he made Europe look beautiful and a wasteland right after the battles. Like, you see the before and after. And he was, from what I read, they only filmed in two locations, in Prague and Czech Republic. So it was interesting to watch. Like, I don't know if you did any research on it. Like, are those, like, when, like, close to the end when he's in like the big ditch or whatever with the French soldier, was that
the shell crater?
Yeah, like, was that something they actually dug up, or is that green screen? Like, it made it look fucking real, like they're actually in the mud, like in the shit.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it. I would 100% agree with you. This film is very like stylized and beautifully shot. So the cinematographer did a fantastic job. The director is Edward Berger. So he's a German director, most known for Deutschland 83, which is a fantastic German TV show that takes place in Eastern West Germany. He did Patrick Melrose and Your Honor, and James Friend, his DOP, worked with him on Your Honor and Patrick Melrose. So they've worked together a couple times. Yeah, right from the opening scene with the animals kind of in a little den, the little foxes and stuff like that. Like hyper realistic. Well, I guess it is realistic. And it just keeps going from there. And then, like you said, the juxtaposition between the wasteland of the front, but then also once you get away from the front, like the farmers, when they're going to, steal the goose and the eggs from the farmer or whatever, or that, like, those beautiful green hills and all that type of stuff, right? So yeah, it is beautifully shot.
Yeah. Now, I haven't watched the original in fucking decades. Like, decades.
Yep.
But for the one thing I always remembered of the original, and I didn't see it in this one either, so I'm assuming they changed it, is from what I remember with the original, like, the main characters, they were kind of manipulated into going into the war by their teachers, kind of like, you're not real men unless you're going, and then they go to the leader of the, like, that group of friends, and because technically his manhood is being threatened, he was like, fuck it, I'm going, and then all the other friends go. And this one, they're all kind of primed to go from the beginning, right? So I always thought that little bit of the first, like the original film, made it a lot more tragic, because you actually saw people that didn't want to go, and then by the end of the film, they're so assimilated into the war culture that they lose everything they are. They're pretty much just machines by the end of it. But this
Yeah,
one, it's just like he like fuck, the main character is, what's his name
Paul.
again? Paul. Like he kind of regains his humanity close to the end, and then when he becomes just like the other one, when he's like, fuck it, like this is, it's the same shit every day, when they're like, we're going to try to take over this last hill one last time before the ceasefire.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, so there's also the 1979 TV movie, which a lot of people, if you've seen All Quiet on the Western Front, may have also seen, which is very well done. And yes, it does. It's similar to the 1930 film. It did exactly what you're talking about happens, right? Where there's more time spent in that the teachers winding them up, where in this version, it's sort of like they're excited. You get the speech from the teacher, but the teachers, it's almost like they're already convinced to go at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
teacher's
Like
basically just
before,
saying, like, congratulations, you're great. You're the Iron Youth of Germany, right? So
yeah, no, exactly. Like just before that scene, that's when they have that group of friends. Um, and Paul's like, you know, I forged the signature, because he was like, how did you get your mom to sign it? Because his mom didn't want to go to war. He was like, I'm not going to be missing out on this
yeah,
kind of thing. So yeah, so it was just like pretty much they're all convinced to go beforehand.
but
Now,
this that's a
go.
common theme. Like if you, so this is our, as I said at the beginning of the show, this is our third World War I anti-war film, but we started with Gallipoli with the Australians, and you see that concept as well, though. Like, I'm not going to miss out. I'm not going to get stuck back here. The Germans will be beaten by the time I get there. I hope there's some fighting left for me to do. And that was at the beginning of the war. And All Quiet on the Western Front is like 1918. It's almost near the end of the war
Mhm.
when they go, and that's still that idea. Even though by this point, lots of people have not come home, and the teacher actually brings that up in that speech, like uh, many of you I will not see again, but those who do, and you will put your sword on the mantle and the Iron Cross on your chest, and to still think that this was some grand adventure that you were going to go off and have a gay old time, and really you just got shit and mud and death.
Yeah, like out of the ones we've done, this one I would agree is the more, you see a lot more of, I guess you can say, the stupidity of war, right? Where it's just the hubris of some, and it's like the 80%, 80 other percent that have to fight it that are gonna die, while the other ones are just, eating steak and, eating fucking mashed potatoes and wine, while everybody else is turnip bread, right? While they're actually fighting this war.
So again, this is one of the differences between this version and the other two versions. The book is very much in the trenches with the character. The author he served during the First World War, basically in 1918. He was 18 years old when he went off to fight. Like, he's basically Paul. It's very autobiographical. Erich Remarque, he actually, this book got banned by the Nazis when they came to power, and he had to flee Germany. He first went to Switzerland and then to the United States. And the Nazis ended up actually killing his sister in about 1944 because they couldn't get a hold of him, because they considered him like a dissident, because this book is so powerful in how it shows the falsehood of nationalism, right? Sorry, I got sidebarred there, but one of the things that this version does that the other two don't really touch on is the high command, right? Like, as you see them, like Daniel Bruhl is basically there to sign the armistice, and how the soldiers are doing all the fighting, and they're in, smoking cigars, and like you said, eating steak and drinking brandy and talking. And then there's the general that's like, soldiers are to fight wars. Like, what is a soldier without a war? So let's go do some more fighting. Also eating steak, drinking brandy, and not even in the trenches, right? So it was
Yeah,
kind of cool to
exactly.
see what was going on at the like high command and the politician level, and the effect of it on the soldier. Actually, on that point, one of the best, scenes in this movie is right at the beginning, when you see the soldier die, and then you watch the trail of his uniform as it gets taken off the body, sent back to Germany, washed, darned, repackaged, and the next, like you said, like almost like an assembly line of soldiers. It goes, they go in, they pick up the new uniforms, and Paul's like, "Oh, this is somebody else's," and the officer basically just like, "Oh," rips off the name tag. "Oh, that must have been too small." Like, they're just, it's like a factory. It's just
Yeah,
a
and
factory.
when they have that scene as well, like you follow the name tag to the end and you see like by his feet there's like hundreds of name tags.
Yeah, and just even just the act of discarding it like that is deliberate, right? Like this idea of like this person became a name, and that name is now discarded. Like, they're done. They've served their purpose, and it was of almost no value.
Yeah, in the kind of circle, they have the scene where they circle too, where at the first battle it's Paul, and then after the collapse of the trench, and they dig him out, and then they're like, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah." They're like, "Okay, start collecting the tags," right? Give him the thing, and you see him going one by one collecting. I guess that was their version of the dog tags, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just sort of like, okay, so who's dead now? Who's
Yeah,
dead
and
now?
then you see it at the end too, after the last battle. They're like, "All right, are you okay?" "Yeah." "All right, go collect go collect your tags," right?
Yeah, so our producer says that pretty basically everything, such as the shell craters and mud, were real. They dug trenches and shell craters, and then they brought in mud for the shot. So it's all real. It's not CGI. It's like real actors in real mud in real, conditions. So that's good. That's what makes it look so real, because that it is real, right? So
Fuck, if that. So you're saying the tanks are real too? That had to have
uh
been CGI over, because there's no way they would have actors underneath those.
well, I mean, I don't know about that part, but we're talking about just the
Yeah.
set dressing.
Mhm. But
So what's your general takeaway on this film?
it was very well done. I will say, like, I had to pause it a couple of times because I did find the 2.5 hour runtime extremely long. um, but the acting was great. Did you do German with subtitles or did you do subbed?
Oh no, you mean dubbed? No, I mean, I
Dubbed.
always try and watch things in their original language with subtitles. I find that even with a really good dubbing, you're like, you're kind of watching a early '70s kung fu movie here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was interesting. Because I think this is the first time where like a German director and stuff actually took this material.
Yeah,
Everything
you
else
are
has
correct.
always been. So it was interesting to actually see people speaking in German, actually like fucking talking shit about the French and the English. Like you could feel it, kind of thing, as opposed to Valkyrie, where everybody has an English accent and they're German.
Yeah, and again, I actually think that both of those films did that well, right? So in Valkyrie, they're like, well, we want to cast, Tom Cruise and these other amazing actors. Let's not try and make them have the fake German accent. I'm the Tom Cruise. Like, don't do that. Just speak normally and act. And in this, we're gonna get Germans to play Germans and speak German with a German director, and it's like, so it will be a German production. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Now, question for you. I don't know if you want to save this, think about this at the end, or you can answer it now. So this is Germany's submission for foreign film at the Oscars.
Okay.
Now, do you also see this being a Parasite situation where it'll also be nominated for Best Picture?
I think it's so. I would, first off, I would need to take a look at who's gonna, like, we're getting close to like the time where we're gonna be able to start having like real conversations about who the Oscar contenders are. Um, I will have to probably come back to you if first off, this has to get accepted by the Academy, as because just because Germany puts it forward doesn't mean they still need the short list, and we'll see. But okay, let's say it does get through to the Oscars. I mean, it's grand enough. Okay, so like I've talked about like what does a film need to be a best picture, right? So it's got to usually have like a great screenplay. I mean, it's based on All Quiet on the Western Front, so I'd say check. Cinematography, check. Acting, Absolutely. It doesn't have any big name actors, but that's, neither did Parasite. Is it, timely for, where we are in the world right now? Sure. I think it's, it's going to pull at a lot of heartstrings. It's a very famous book, right? Like everybody knows this book. So they're remaking something that's important. And does it have emotional gravitas and scope? Yeah. So I would say yes. I would say that if it makes it into the Oscars, I think it'll get a nomination for Best Picture.
Nice. Interesting. I'm going to say no, but yeah.
So I just used a bunch of science and like logic, and you're just like, yeah, and I'm going to say no just because I want to be adversarial with Chris.
No, it's not that. I 100% agree with everything you're saying, right? But I think in terms of Oscars, like they did Parasite already, right? So now it's going to be a couple more years.
Whoa! Didn't Drive My Car also get nominated, or did it only get?
I thought it was only for foreign.
Okay, it's called international. We call it international now.
Foreign, international, whatever. Okay. So does a Canadian film count as foreign and international?
It's in the international. It's not American. Canada, much to the surprise of maybe some Americans, Canada is not part of the United States. It is part of the Americas, though.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if it's part of North America, does it count? And everything outside of North America? Because I've never looked at the actual rules.
You can have a film that's not part of the international submission, but Canada does submit films in the hopes of having a nationally backed film go to the Oscars, right? So, so yes, we would be in the international classification. So you don't think so? You think that they're going to go back to strictly American produced films for this round of Oscars?
It's not that. I think. I personally think Elvis is just going to take everything away. Elvis or the Fabelmans.
Yeah, but you can still have like 5 or 6 nominees, right? So I'm not suggesting it's necessarily going to win.
Oh, but I'm saying like most likely this will win international, but it won't even make it for Best Picture because either Elvis or the Fabelmans is just going to fucking take over. I don't think you deny Spielberg twice.
Okay, so you've mentioned 2 films. Yeah. They often have like 4 to 6 nominees.
Oh, I think they've upped it.
So do you think it'll get a nomination for Best Picture? That is the question on the table.
I don't.
It won't even make it into the final slots.
I think Batman will over this.
Oh, fuck. I don't know about that. Okay, we're gonna see. We're definitely gonna see. I do think I agree with you that it'll probably win international mostly, and the reason I can say that without looking at the other ones is remember when we had the conversation about Another Round. And I was like, wow, it should be this other film because it's actually a better film and stuff. And you're like, yeah, but people know Mads Mikkelsen and they know the director from, was it The Hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, people know that guy and that's who's going to win. And that you were 100% correct. Yeah. Name recognition. So. Yeah.
And I think having Daniel Bruhl in this one helps, right?
Yeah, even it's so funny because when I originally saw
when you watch that trailer, you think he's like the fucking star.
Yeah, I was like, he's a bit old to play Paul. I'm like, maybe he's playing the sergeant or something like that. And then the guy's on screen for like 15 minutes out of a 2.5-hour film, right? So whatever, it's good. Star Power is good. He was a producer on it as well. I love Daniel Bruhl. I think he's a fantastic actor, both from Rush, of course. He played the best version of Niki Lauda I think you could play. And he's fantastic in Inglourious Bastards. So, oh wait, it's 10/21 by Quentin Tarantino. So make sure you drink there, guys. So other than,
he was also great in Captain America: Civil War.
Oh yeah, he was in that. Maybe we'll talk about the Captain America on another show because it's a Marvel movie, and I know that we've been asked to do more.
Oh, there you go. Next. Oh, never mind. That's World War II. Never mind. I was going to say next Remembrance Day we can do Captain America: First Avenger, but that's World War II.
That'll never happen.
We can do Wonder Woman. There is a really cool no man's land scene in that movie.
We're not going to do pretend movies for Remembrance Day. Do you have any other comments about this film?
I think it is one that people should watch, especially it's a good Netflix and chill movie, especially during the middle part. It drags on. It drags on for a little bit.
let's watch this World War I film that talks, the anti-war film that talks about the horrors of war. And while we're at it, give me a BJ. What? What is your logic just not working today, Scott, or what?
It could be that we're recording way earlier than normal, but yeah, like it was fun. My son watched it with me,
And what do
so
you think?
he was super interested. Um, and me trying, like, he was trying to figure out as well, like he was like, why is this German general keep on trying to send these guys to die, right? And I'm like, it's hubris, man. He pretty much said it in his own monologue that his dad came back from the war a hero because, in his wars he conquered. He was like, he hasn't conquered at all.
Well, and that's why at the very end, even though it's just going to waste a bunch of lives, if he could just win one more battle, then he can go home and hold his head up high. And it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
because
and for you to do that, a bunch of men are not going to go home.
yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I thought that juxtaposition that they had where, the German guys riling up the troops, but when you get to the French troops in the trenches, they're literally remembering all their fallen friends. They're like, oh man, he like I don't remember his name, but we'll say Pierre because fucking it sounds French. They're like, Pierre was saving this to the end, like for the end of
Yes,
the war. And it's like this wine, they're like, okay, to him,
he won't need
right?
it now, right? So
Yeah.
let's
And they're like, let's drink it in honor of him, right? And then it's just like passing out the stuff. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, that was the Germans' mistake, because they started like fucking screaming like 3/4 of the way before getting to the trenches. Like they could have snuck up a little bit better, but
it's also a movie. It's also a
yes,
movie.
it is. But this actually, like that section of the movie is different. Like Edward, or like the director, Edward Berger, he wrote that in as kind of, this is what led to the rise of the Third Reichs and the Nazis, because it was these journals that felt that they were betrayed in World War I, saying they could have won if it wasn't for these people just, asking for these.
Yeah, the sanctions and
Yeah.
well, yeah, they always said that the German army didn't lose on the battlefield. They were stabbed in the back by the politicians, right? So it wasn't the German army's fault. It was the politicians that sold out Germany and the Germans. And again, yes, those reparations from the Treaty of Versailles, which is what they signed there in the little
Right.
rail cart. They punished Germany so hard that it part of it tanked their economy for a long time, and then basically then things were getting back to normal, and then we have the stock market crash and the global market crashes in the 20s, and then Germans who had just come out of being fucking poor all the time went back with hyperinflation and stuff, and it just gave one more reason for fascism to be able to take hold in Germany at the time. So my issue with this film, I think it's beautifully shot. I do think everyone should watch it. I think everybody should watch all three versions of the film, because they do kind of focus on slightly different things. And I would say in all the versions I've seen too, all the acting is really good. Like, I have yet to see like a sloppy version of this book, which I think is appropriate. That whoever, it doesn't matter who the director is, when they take up this book to turn it into a screenplay, or the writers or whatever, it's taken with seriousness. Like it's not considered a frivolous task. It was almost and I love stylized cinematography. Like, it is one of my favorite things. It's one of the things I love most about filmmaking. I almost felt it was not quite gritty enough.
What?
It was almost too pretty at points. I almost want it to be a bit rougher around the edges. And the best example is, if you've ever seen the movie Platoon by Oliver Stone, and I understand we're talking about a totally different war, but there's a certain like dirty, like you feel much more like in a foxhole. And in that case, it's like a very claustrophobic feeling. So if you go watch Gallipoli, when they're in the trenches basically, I think it's Turkey, you can feel almost like the heat and the sweat, and like it feels dirty. Like you can almost feel the grit on your skin, the sand, and the stylizedness almost like rounds out all those corners. So That's kind of my only issue with this film is more, I would have preferred a more gritty version.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Like to me, I thought this was like a Saving Private Ryan take, where
Yeah, okay, so there's a perfect example.
you're
That
up close and personal with it the whole time, right?
so okay, so that's actually a really great comparison. So the steadiness of the camera in this is what they didn't do in, say, that opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, right? Having that handheld camera, you can feel, you get that feeling of being in a landing craft, bullets and the fucking camera all over the place. It makes you feel the heat of battle, right? You're like the disorientation that comes from, or being disoriented the way you would in a battle scene is much more palatable. You can feel it in Save It Private Ryan, where in this it's almost again like that it's a bit too good, right? The camera work is
Yeah,
too stable, it's too clean, so you don't feel the kind of like sickening, like jarring, like I would have liked to see more, maybe shoulder mounted, running scenes and stuff like that.
like a 1917, you would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, where it bounces around. But look, like I'm basically looking for stuff to just kind of poke at this thing. This is a
Yeah,
beautiful film. It is a
like
beautiful film.
it is. No, I agree. It is beautiful. Like my criticism wouldn't have been that. My criticism would have been in terms of um story wise. Like I know it's a 2.5 hour movie, but you only really spend time with Paul, right? Like it was a group of friends, and pretty much they just become in this version, they're just cannon fodder. You don't get to know each one as opposed to the other films where each one started having their motivations, had their own character, right? It was just literally like watching them go as like well, Paul goes, and then slowly one of his friends is always fucking dying in each one of these battles, and he gets to watch it, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the powers of, like you said, the other two versions and the book, is because so Paul is still the main character, but because you know those other people more, you know their backstory more, you know their hopes and dreams. When they die, their tragic deaths, their senseless deaths, it has weight to you because you're
Mm.
like, oh man, like it's sort of like Game of Thrones when you're like, oh shit, that person got killed. I didn't think that person could get killed, because in war, it's not a movie, it's real. And you know there's a line basically in the TV version from the 70s where it's sort of like, you do all these things to stay alive, but really it's just luck. Like you can get buried under a bomb proof, you could get buried in a bomb proof cellar basically, or you could like walk around in the open and never get hit. Like it is
Mm.
100% fucking random luck. You are doing things that you think will keep you alive, but in the end it's not really up to you. So
No, exactly. And that's the like by the final battle, you see it. It's just like Paul's just charging. He's not even zigzagging. He's not even moving. He's just like fucking. I'm just running a straight line.
yeah, because it's probably just as useful, right?
Yeah, and then yeah, exactly. And he's like, the one scene where that like the beginning scene where he's just shooting, or he's not even shooting, he's just technically unloading the gun because he
Yeah,
never actually takes a shot, then just grabs a shovel and starts running with a fucking shovel. He's like, fuck
yeah.
it, I'm just gonna do this.
So and actually that's something I did like, is the use of it, the shovel as an entrenching tool. That was common practice to attack each other with you would actually sharpen the side of your shovel and you would try and like take someone's head off with the shovel. Like that brutality, like where there's a scene where he like basically just crushes a dude with his shovel. Like that is very real. And I actually want more of that, right? That like fanatical, like this is what it's like to try and stay alive here, right?
Yeah.
Um, so did you think the pacing is off, or do you just think it's actually too long, or do
Like
you
to
think
me, I thought it was, yeah, I think a lot of things were held on that you didn't need to hold on to, right? Like if you go like final battle, when they're going and it's kind of like you're a SWAT team behind these guys, and it's just like, okay, they're turning left, you see the thing, then backing up, shooting, going, shooting, and then they take that break for like 4 or 5 minutes, I think it was, or at least it felt that way, where they're just eating the French's food, right? and
yeah,
then and
you're saying
then
they could have just done that part quicker?
exactly, because that was leading to the tanks, and the lead up, what, like the 3 seconds before that, where you just see like all those fucking rats and mice just like fucking getting the fuck out, and they're looking like that was powerful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you know, like for them, like to me, and you know, I'm not a military tactician, but to me, to be in a trench and where their kitchen is and put my guns down and I'm like grabbing their chicken, grabbing their gravy, just like, you're probably gonna get shot, right?
I mean, I think that is probably accurate with a bunch of starving troops. That so I agree with you. I think that what they should have done is shown them jump in. There's like they grab the chicken, oh, and then they're off over the trench again, right? Like just like a one and done, boom, 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 right? Keep it dynamic, right? Like, or even just a very slow, like they get the chicken and da da da. Look up, oh shit, there's the tanks, right? Like that lull. And I know why the lull, or I'm assuming the lull is put in there to bring the pace of the film down a bit, and also to give you an opportunity to see exactly what they're doing, like that they're eating and stuff like that. But again, I agree with you. If you need to roll it out more realistically, right? Or just to keep the pace of the film moving forward.
Yeah, but they also cut out like a couple of scenes, like from the book, because I remember there was a time in the book that Paul had to leave and he actually got to go home.
Yes, and he confronts the class that they're trying to rile up again, right, to go fight, and he's like, "Whoa, no, it's not what you're talking about. Like, don't go." And they call him basically like a coward, right?
Yeah, and that was the thing, because like that section of the book, it was technically like he was so changed from the war that he no longer had technically any more connections with his village and his town. He was just like, fuck it, right? Like, I guess I'm going back to die.
Well, and I mean, this is going to be what happens when these guys come home after the war. It's like anybody who didn't go fight, like they're basically aliens to each other. Like they don't, and this is actually a symptom of lots of wars, where like post-traumatic stress and stuff, like shell shock, whatever you want to call it. You just no longer fit into your society because you've seen things that people should never see. You know what I mean? You've done things that people should never do. So
yeah. Oh, like even when you like when they're when the amorous is signed, but they're in that village and they're all celebrating that it's going to be signed and the war is done. The next day, his one friend that got shot in the leg, right, is like, fuck it, I'm not going to be a cripple. And then you just see him technically commit suicide with a knife, or with a fork. And then when they're trying to help him, you see the other soldier just fucking grab their food and just watch him kill himself while eating, because he's starving and he doesn't.
Whatever, that guy's gonna be dead anyway. I'm gonna eat these beans and sausage, right? So so my quote this week kind of summarizes what I had to feel about the whole film. So Michael O'Sullivan from the Washington Post, he said, "It is handsomely shot, but there are long sequences where little happens. True to life, perhaps, but it's slow. There is definitely slow points to it. So, but I do highly recommend it. Read the book, watch all the versions, and if you're here in Canada, make sure you take yourself to a cenotaph on November 11th. And if you're in other countries, please honor those ceremonies that you do have, because it's not about memorializing war. It's about remembering those that kind of gave the ultimate sacrifice. So.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
It was a good film.
Now, your quote that you did, was that from this movie or?
It's the opening. It's in the book. It's in all. It opens. It opens the film.
But it's not them saying it. It's just like
it's just there. Yeah. I just read it because it's one of the more famous lines from All Quiet on the Western Front, because it opens the book, right? So.
I really thought you were gonna go with the quote where when they're smelling the girl's underwear and like she smells like she like takes 2 baths a day.
No, I try to keep it kind of serious for Remembrance Day or whatever. Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.